You've tamed the voices in your head. You've put your courage to the test. Laid all your doubts to rest.
Hi everyone from Your Intuition Queen, and this is a new episode of Intuitive Queens podcast. And today I have the pleasure to have with me Melissa Lynn, who is a life coach and leadership coach. Hi Melissa, welcome here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So I know you have a really interesting story, and I'd love you to tell us a little bit and let us know about it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So I'll start at the beginning. I think the most interesting fact about me is I've lost 115 pounds. And so I did that through the course of 2 marriages. And
Cool.
it was basically, my first marriage was it was a great experience for learning. I was 18. I got married right out of high school, and I was your typical, 18-year-old stubborn. Everybody was telling me, Melissa, this isn't the best idea. And, I was out to prove people wrong. And so, from a very young age, I basically ignored all of the red flags, and I was determined to really make things work. And I ended up in a abusive relationship. There was a lot of domestic violence that took place. And so through the journey of that, I basically was an emotional eater. And so dealing with, the trauma and all of that experience and the stress, I really just found that, my peace came from pizza. And so, I started, definitely eating a lot, and I was gaining weight. Towards the end of my first marriage, I was able to, really take control of my life and started to get healthy again and ended up getting married right away. So one marriage ended, I rolled right into another relationship and got married. That marriage ended with 7 affairs.
Wow.
So during that process, it was the same thing. I was so unhappy and, beating myself up that I had, again, ignored, the signs and the red flags and all of these things. Like my intuition and my soul was telling me, Melissa, you're doing, you need to change course, you need to run. And I just kept pushing through. I was so afraid of being alone, and I was so afraid of being a single mom that I just kept going. And so then finally one day it just hit me, my health is at risk, and my children, I needed to make sure that I was going to be around for my children. And so I just started to really just learn how to eat healthy, and I started exercising. And then all of a sudden I was, the most fit I had ever been in my entire life. And I was running, half marathons, and everything seemed so great.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so miserable. I was so miserable. And it really became very clear to me that it wasn't about the size of my body. It wasn't about, the nutrition. It really was. It was also the whole mindset and the mental aspect that was missing. And so I really decided that, what is that? What is that? And I kept chasing. And, I started diving into personal development. I couldn't get enough of it. I started attending women's conferences, and I really learned that it all goes hand in hand. What we feed our body is just as important as what we feed our mind.
Oh yeah.
And so I really learned that, gosh, I was feeding my mind negative, terrible things. And it was, you've heard that saying, if you treated your friends and you talked to your friends that way, would you have any friends?
Yeah.
I was like, wow, no, absolutely not. And so I really decided it's time to figure this out. And I went ahead and got my certification as a nutrition and health coach, because I was so determined to make sure that I was keeping my health as well as my children's health and everybody around me, making sure everybody was healthy. And then really just dove into that mindset work. And that's when I decided that I wanted to take it a step further, and I became a certified leadership and life coach. And within the two, now I'm able to really combine what it was that was making me choose food. I was numbing out my emotions. I was numbing out my feelings. I really just didn't want to deal with anything. And so I was basically just eating to not have to deal with that. So I really wanted to dive into that because like now, so many of the clients that I work with, we all have a mechanism that we use to run from ourselves and to
Mm.
numb out
Right.
that emotion. And yeah, it's so interesting because for me, I chose food, but people choose alcohol, people are choosing drugs, people are
Mm.
choosing shopping or gambling. There's all of these sort of, addictions or things that
Yeah.
people do just so that they don't have to think about what's going on around them.
Mm.
And that's that's my from one side to the other.
Okay.
But yeah,
I'd like to go back a little bit,
okay.
because how what was your mental process when you were, because
Mhm.
when you're 18 you're so young, but it's so
Yeah,
true, you so want to prove that you can do everything and that you're so right, that you
right.
might take some wrong decisions.
Mhm.
So what was the process for you when you were in your first relationship? What's going on with you really?
It was I was so paralyzed by fear. I was so paralyzed by having to accept the failure of the marriage and also having to ask for help. So I think that
Mm.
I was married for 10 years and I stayed in that situation far too long. But like through that process, I really learned I was such a people pleaser. And so this is one of the things that I really dive into and I really spend a lot of time, specializing in because my whole thing was pleasing everybody around me.
Mm.
I wanted to please, my ex-husband. I wanted to please my family. I wanted to make sure that every decision I was making was keeping everybody around me happy, even though I was miserable. And so finally I just kind of got to a point where it was really just like a light switch. Like all of a sudden it just hit me. Like, Melissa, you have got to take action. The situation is only going to get worse.
Mm.
And finally, it was like, okay, like I surrendered. I just surrendered to where I was. I surrendered to the fact that it is what it is. I made terrible decisions, and at that moment, I was okay with that. Like at that moment, I was okay with what is it going to take. And I remember I was a full-time student in college, had no job, and I used my student loan money to pay the first and last month's rent on an apartment so that I could take my children and I could get out of the situation. And it, you know, it was scary, but making that decision and going through it was so empowering. Like I
Mm.
felt like Superwoman at the end of that. And even though I wasn't sure, how I was going to pay bills in a couple of months, it was very much I did it. I got out. I didn't go back. That's the biggest thing that there is this pattern when you're in an abusive relationship. A lot of times women go back to their abusers, and there's multiple reasons behind, why I did it and why other people do it. And this time I didn't. I was able to break that cycle, and it was really just surrendering. Like it was really just acknowledging, okay, this is it. Like this is my life, this is my situation, and it's going to be okay. And I was okay. I was okay talking about it. I was okay asking for, the help that I need, and ultimately believing in myself that it was all going to be okay.
Mm. You touched upon a lot of important topics there, asking for help,
Yeah.
people pleasing, but also when you said, I made it and I surrender.
Hmm.
So what was like when you took your children and you used your student loan
Hmm.
and you didn't know how to get to the next step and how to pay the bills, what was happening there for you? How did everything resolve for you?
Um, Gosh, that's such a good question. Honestly, I think that I knew that I couldn't get paralyzed in the fear. So I was all my children had at that moment. So I knew that, okay, Melissa, like, it was really just getting clear on my daily needs and what I was going to do every single day to be able to get to the next. And so I think that a lot of times, we tend to think so far ahead, and
Mm,
that is super scary. So
yes.
I really just got clear every day what it was that I needed to do. And it was knowing that, okay, well, I need to make sure that I'm going to school every day. I need to get through these classes. I need to graduate, and really just staying true to that. And then also in that process, it was really trying to, it's so funny. At the time, it was trying not to repeat patterns, right? Like I was really trying not to repeat patterns, but then I did. Like I ended up, the next man that I dated was the next man that I married, and there was multiple red flags. There was multiple, Melissa, you're making a terrible decision. And, I did it anyways.
Mm,
And yeah, I didn't actually, between marriage one and marriage two, I was still in survival mode, but it was also still like making those steps to get through it. Like I was still fighting for custody of my children. I was still going through, all of these different things. Yeah, so I ended up getting married a year and a half after my first divorce, and way too soon. I know now looking back that my lessons, there's lessons and blessings in absolutely everything that we go through. And, my lesson was really learning to trust myself, really
mm,
learning that I would be okay and that I would be able to survive, and I would be able to provide for my children and for myself. And that, I really didn't need to be in a relationship for that to be, for that to happen, for that to be okay for me. So yeah, it was definitely a learning experience. But I know now that, if I could get through that, anybody can get through anything that they're going through.
yeah, and I think that, the fears that we have and the patterns that we have, sometimes it takes a long time to
Mhm.
break them and break
Right.
the cycles. It's so powerful that you said, I wanted so much to break the cycle that I went back to doing the same thing with a different man.
Yeah.
um, because as much as we want to, but we still have that fear, and it's so difficult and different.
Mhm.
So what was that thing for you? Because clearly from doing the same thing one man, you did the same thing with the
Mhm.
second one. So now you broke that cycle. What
Yeah.
is that thing that made you finally
Mhm.
being able to do that?
It was really learning to love myself.
Mm.
I was so, I swear I've been a people pleaser probably from day one. Like once I learned, Melissa, you have to please yourself. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't matter if you're, I feel like for so many years of my life, I was showing up as this fake person. We all tend to wear a mask of something at some point, and that was who I was. And once I really got clear on, who I was, what I needed, what I would tolerate, you know, what my values were. Like I spent many years, and this is what's really crazy. I spent many years with no clear values for
Mm.
myself or for what I would tolerate, from those around me. And if once I got clear on that, it really made it a lot easier to decide exactly what I needed in my life. And honestly, I needed me. I
Yeah.
needed for me to show up for myself. And the only way that would happen was really to learn. I needed to learn, you know, what it meant to be in love. And the only way you're going to learn is by loving yourself.
Yeah.
I really had to go through that process of what I thought love wasn't.
Mm.
It was really just me seeking the approval and, external validation of whoever I was with. And it's not just in romantic relationships. Like it was in my friendships. It was in everybody who I allowed in my circle. I was the person that everybody would call for everything because I would just never say no. So even
Mm.
though I would not really want to do things, I would do it because I was so afraid of being alone. Like I was so afraid of losing the connections. And once I went through this whole process, it's not easy. I lost, not only, did I file for a second divorce and am now finally single, but I lost a lot of friends along the way. And I mean, and it was, now I know that it was for the right reason. Now I know
Yeah.
that they weren't friends with me. They were friends with this persona that I
Image,
was
yeah.
putting. Yeah. And so really just trying to get clear on that. And, honestly, it was like, Melissa, what do you need for yourself? Because that's how you're going to be happy, and that's how you're going to survive.
Wow, it's so powerful and it's so true. And I think, the fact that you realize you had to figure out what your values are, where, and that also created the right boundaries around the people. And
Right.
of course, whenever we change the way we behave,
Mhm.
we're going to lose people. So on here, I kind of want to touch a little bit more on that thing that really happened within you,
Mhm.
and that really made you decide, because you don't decide from a day to another that you need to
Right.
love yourself.
Mhm.
So from years of being, as you said, a people pleaser, what is that thing, or maybe few things that happened for you that brought you to this kind of rising up for yourself?
Yeah. So for me, I was invited by a friend to attend a women's conference, and I was like, I'm not so sure about that because it's as a child, I was raised that women were kind of the enemy.
Mm.
Women were always mean. Women tend to be catty, and it didn't sound like going to a weekend retreat where there was going to be 700 women. I was like, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know how that's something that I need in the moment. And I just felt so called to go. Like, I just had
Mm.
this desire that, okay, like, there's something with this. So I surrendered and I went, and I want to say that was the moment that changed my life. And it
Mhm.
was like, oh my gosh, like these women are just like me. Like these women are here despite the fact that women are scary, like women, and I was like, wow, like is this really what it could be like on the other side? And my mentor at the time, the event was the Bliss Project with Lori Harder. And I was like, oh my gosh, this woman, she's a fitness instructor, she's a health coach, she's a life coach, like she does all of this mindset work. And I was just, it's like this light went off, and I was like, how do I get more of this?
Mm.
Because that weekend, I don't even recall ever feeling that good. And I mean, the birth of my two children was great, but this is something completely different.
Yeah.
And it was like, I need more. I need to make sure that I stay within this. And so that's really what I did. I couldn't get enough. I couldn't get enough of the personal development. I started podcasts became my best friends. I started really diving into podcasts and researching, and somebody would say something and I would like, oh, I didn't even know the term people pleasing. I was like, what is that? And then it was like, whoo, that is me. And it was really just, it felt good. And
Mm.
so I started chasing it, and I started chasing more. And it was really about what was filling me up and what was making me feel complete. And that's why I all of a sudden like dove in full force.
That's amazing. And I think, yeah, sometimes um, events like this, books, anything that
Yeah.
resonate with you, there is maybe a sentence or whatever it is. And I like that you said there were so many women that were like me,
Yeah.
because we always think that we are on our own, and our fears, our pain is only ours. Nobody can understand. But
Mhm.
actually, there are so many people that are going through, if not the same, at least similar situations. And then it's just a matter of getting together and help each other.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I felt so alone. Like that was the biggest thing. I think that now as a coach and with the work that I do, it's really making sure that everybody realizes that there are others. There are
Mhm.
other women, other men, who are going through the same thing that you're going through. Because, gosh, I really felt alone. Dealing with domestic violence, there's so much shame around that. I didn't want to
Mm.
talk about it. I kept myself in such a dangerous situation for far too long. And part of the reason for that is I didn't know. I didn't have anybody to turn to. And yes, I had my family, but there's even family's not always the best
Mm-mm.
person to turn to, right? And so
Yeah.
it was really getting clear on what that was. And gosh, when I went to that first event and I found all of these women who, many were going through divorce, many were dealing with abuse of some kind, and some of it was sexual abuse, some of it, like, everybody had a different trauma, but so many of the traumas were the same. And it was
Mm.
really, really seeing that, wow, there's power in being involved and being around a group of women who are on the same mission. And that mission was to really find your purpose and to stand in your truth and not be ashamed, and to live life to the fullest.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's so true. And I think, the more we surround ourselves with people that can understand what we're going through, but it's also so true, like talking about certain topics,
Hmm.
even with what you think are your best friend, even if they really are your best friend, it's not always that easy.
Yeah.
And as you said, there is so much shame around it that
Hmm.
do you really want to put yourself into that situation? How
Right.
that person is gonna, there is so much judgment from ourselves and from we think we're gonna
Hmm.
receive back that kind of shuts you down.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so what was the thing for you? So after you've done this, what were the practical steps that you took to get out of that situation and that mindset?
Honestly, the first thing for me, it was really getting clear on my values. Once I got clear on my values, I knew what my must-haves were, and honestly, not being ashamed of that. I had to get clear that, wanting to work and, do pursue my dreams as a career, as a coach, and to help other people was okay.
Mm,
Even though where I live, and I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and here it's very much like, to be successful, you need to, work for a few companies that are here. Like, people
mm,
who are successful in Albuquerque work for these companies, and I worked for that, one of those companies. And I was so unhappy, though. And it was really getting clear that, okay, for me and for my happiness and for my soul to feel complete, I need to pursue my dreams. And once I got clear on my values, that was okay. Because before, I was living in the people pleasing mindset of, no, like, I don't want to disappoint my family. I don't want to
mm.
disappoint, my husband at the time. And so once I got clear on that, I was able to pursue that. And then it was really, really getting clear on, if it's not a hell yes, then the answer is no.
I
And
like it.
yeah, and it's like, so many times I was making decisions that I really didn't want to do,
Mm,
but I would do it anyways. Or I would say yes to things that really weren't a hell yes. Like, I was saying yes because it was coming from that need of wanting to please somebody and not disappoint them. So once I got clear that, Melissa, this is it. And to this day, when I get asked to do things, if it's not a hell yes, then for me right now it's a no.
mm,
And that's okay. And once I got, we can't control um, how other people respond.
yeah.
All we can control is that we're standing in our truth. And you can deliver any message as long as you're delivering it with grace and kindness. And if somebody doesn't like your answer, or somebody doesn't like that they're not getting the response because it's not they're not dealing with that old you anymore, that's okay, because
Yeah.
they are solely responsible for themselves and their own, the way that they deal with it, not me. And once I kind of released the need to, or the desire to want to make sure that they were
Mm.
happy, it made everything so much easier.
And it's so true that, like, you know, we take responsibility for what other people think. And really, what we should be
Yeah.
taking responsibility is ourselves and ourselves only. The
Hmm.
way we react, the way we respond, the way we behave, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because as a lot of the gurus say, you know, they are just you are just a reflection of what they don't like or what they
Hmm.
wish that they could be. So
Hmm.
sometimes people, you know, push you away or judge you for reasons we can't even understand, because it's
Yeah.
their life, it's not about us, but we take it
Hmm.
so personally too many times, and that affects us too much on too many levels.
Right. Yeah,
Mm.
I completely agree with that. You're absolutely right.
Okay, so what happened after this revelation, and how did you, when did you get to a point where you started to feel that was really you, the real you?
Um, it's this is such a great question. I love this because it I think I knew who I really was, but I was still in the fear of that. I was in fear really of who I was. And when my ex-husband had his seventh affair and I found out about it, it was like all of a sudden I was okay. I wasn't devastated. I think that, you know, there was a part of me that was expecting it to happen again. You know, it had already happened so many times before. But all of a sudden, I was just done. And once I acknowledged that I was done and I asked for a divorce, and I really like it was just one decision after another that I was standing in my truth and I was standing in my power, and I really started living life practicing the things that I had learned. And I think
Mm.
that, you know, in personal development, there's this saying that a lot of people, we tend to kind of hoard like our personal development things that we've learned, and we don't really take action on them. This was my opportunity and my time to do so. And really just, it was one decision after another. And you know, everything that I wanted was out of my comfort zone. Everything that I
Mm.
wanted was, you know, I had to go through that fear. You know, you can't go around it, you have to go through it. And once I really started doing that, things just kind of started to line up for me. And I was okay asking, I was okay asking for the divorce. I was okay going through that process. And more importantly, I was okay being alone. Like I was
Mm.
okay being single. I was okay. I don't mind the title now of a single mom. Like I'm, you know, I'm a badass mama. Like I'm a single mom, and I am 100% okay with that. And so it was really just, you know, part of it is surrendering. It's surrendering
Mm.
to it is what it is, and honestly, like knowing that it was going to be okay.
Mm. I like this. And you mentioned at the beginning that because of the way you grew up and you were scared of women, thinking that women
Mhm.
would bitch around each other.
Yeah.
So, and you just mentioned that it was okay now to be a single woman.
Yeah.
What was that thing that you were carrying on from your family in terms of belief around how a
Mhm.
woman should be?
Right. It's That is such a great question because I remember, I think one of the biggest things I took with me into adulthood around the whole, you know, women are catty, women are difficult to get along with, and all this stuff. When I decided to finally leave my first husband, it was like 2 weeks before Christmas. And I was done. Like, you know, there was an event that took place, and I knew at that moment, now's the time you've got to take action. I remember calling my best friend from high school. You know, we had been friends for so many years. And I remember calling her and saying, you know, hey, like I need to get, you know, I need help. Like I am trying to get packed. I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to get the kids out. And her response to me was, you know, you've had so many times to leave and you chose 2 weeks before Christmas to do so. And I'm not
Wow.
able to come and help you. And I was like, okay, wow. So I remember in that moment, it was women are bitches, like women are, you know, all of
Mm.
these, it like totally like confirmed all of these thoughts. I proceeded forward. And then this second go around, though, I had been to these women, these conferences with women, and I had started to put myself out, and I was
Mm.
vulnerable, and I started to really step into that. And I had such a network of women that were supporting me. And everybody was very encouraging, everybody was very supportive. And so at the end of my second marriage, when I finally decided to end it, and was reaching out for support, it was just different. It was like night
Mm.
and day, and I had all of these women that I could turn to. And so you just realizing that one person and one response that I got from one person doesn't define every woman that's out there.
Yeah.
And really, I think that also part of that is we attract like energy.
Hmm.
We are magnetic. And I am a different person now than I was at the end of my first marriage. And so, if I'm attracting a mirror reflection of myself, I had the support within the community that I had created.
Yeah, that is so beautiful because it's so true. Like once you are in a low vibration, you're going to be surrounded by low vibrational people, and
Right.
once you raise them, then you get the support that you need. And it's also so true that because you've been rejected by a person doesn't mean that everybody's going to reject you in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hadn't even thought about that story for so long. So it's so interesting that it came up like in this talking with you. But yeah, and now I have the opportunity. So it's really, so now when you talk about making new decisions and changing myself for the better, but I'm also changing the next generation. So within raising my daughter, it's really teaching her that women aren't terrible. Like
Mm.
women, it's who you're choosing. It's really, and really getting clear on what those values are. So raising a young woman, she's 19, and she's going through some of the same things that I went through as a young woman. And
Yeah.
it's so powerful to be able to tell her, you know get clear. What type of woman do what type of woman do you want to be that person, and then you're going to attract that into your life.
Mm.
And it's all about how we show up. And so I'm able to instill that within my children, and even my son. It's kind of the same thing, even though coaching men is completely different than coaching women.
Mm.
But the actual, like, getting clear so that you are developing those boundaries around you, and you're attracting those people that you want. It doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. And so with my children, I can see that they are, their mindset and their maturity level around friendship and what it means to be a friend and what you expect within your friend group is a lot different than other kids their age. And so for them, it's a little, it can be a bit of a struggle, but it's also, they're able to recognize and they
Mm.
see patterns a lot sooner than I did, because they have those tools available to them.
Yeah, and it's so powerful and so true. And because you went through this, you're not able to teach them. And I think, yeah, when you're in your 18, 20, what you want to do is just, be cool and stay
Right.
around cool people. And that doesn't necessarily mean being with people that actually you can trust. So, and they're
Right.
really honest and
Yeah.
helpful with you and vice versa.
Mhm.
Okay, so at this point,
Mhm.
how did you get into your business? How did you step into becoming a life coach, and especially a leadership coach? And why
Mhm.
did you choose to become a leadership coach specifically?
It all started during my journey of releasing the weight. Everybody just started like, Melissa, what are you doing? Like, you are not only are you losing weight and your body is changing, but you seem, you're so different. Like, what is it? What are you doing? And so I really felt fulfilled sharing, being able to share what I was doing with other people.
Mm.
It was like, wow, like I didn't know that that was a desire of mine. But as I was teaching people, showing them what I was doing, and I was, sharing my recipes, and I was doing these things, it really, like, at the end of the conversation, I was like, wow, like, I felt great. And all I was
Mm.
doing was providing. I was in service to somebody else, somebody else's happiness, somebody else's needs at that moment. So it was like, what is that? And so I started really getting into, well, if this makes me feel good, what am I actually doing? Because I didn't know. I didn't even know that there was such a thing as this coaching thing. And so really getting clear on that. And so that's when I got my certification as a holistic health coach.
Mhm.
But then at that moment, it was like, well, there's something missing here, because even though I was the healthiest I had ever been, I was still in that second marriage that
Mm.
wasn't serving me. So then that's when I realized I'm missing, there's still that component of my mind, my mindset that was missing. So I really dove into what what it was to be a leader. And it was to be a leader in my own life, and
Mm.
to really step up for myself. And so that's when I started getting more into that. And that's when I realized, like, there's a mind body connection. Like,
Oh
it's
yeah.
really not just eat this food, move your body, and you're going to be happy. Yes, you may release the weight that you're trying to release, but at the end of the day, that doesn't make you a leader. That doesn't make you, um, the badass of your own life. That just, you're still just following steps. And so once I really decided, like, there's something more. Well, and for me, that's what it was, and that's why I decided to really get into the life coaching and the leadership coaching. Because to be a leader, it doesn't matter if it's corporate leadership, or if it's, being a leader within your own family, or just being the leader within your own life, and
Mm.
really just tapping into what that meant for myself, and then how can I create these tools or provide these tools to help others find that within them.
Ah, that's amazing. That is so powerful, but it's so true. And I think the key is really understanding what you want, and as you said, your values. I think once you know what your values are, then it's easier to take decisions, because you know what you want and what you don't. And as you said earlier, you realize what you can tolerate and what you don't want to tolerate, and
Right.
it's just a different story.
Mhm.
Okay, so tell us what you do now, and what kind of people you help. What are the topics that come up for you the most?
Yes. So my big thing is people pleasing. I really work with both men and women. So I coach men and women, and it's, mindset work. It's really, um, standing in your truth. And so it starts with, well, what is my truth? What does it mean to show up as myself, unapologetically, authentically? Like, what is that? And so I really, take my clients from the beginning. Who are you? What makes you happy? What fills you up? And honestly, it's getting clear on values. Like, that's where I start.
Mm,
And I start there because sometimes we take on values that really aren't our top five.
yeah.
Yeah, we value that in life, but that could be a value that you believe you have to have based off of somebody else's story.
Mm,
So really getting clear on what that is, and then from there, it's just taking it a step further. And, well, why are you not standing in that? Like, why are you not standing in your truth? Why are you not making sure that those that you invite into your inner circle are not respecting your values? Why do these things keep happening? And really getting clear on what those reasons are. And so I truly believe that all of us are people pleasers to some extent. We all make decisions every single day, or, there's a decision that we make that we're doing to please somebody else.
mm,
And really working with my clients that, if you're a people pleaser, it's actually very selfish, because you are coming from a place of wanting other people to like you. You're not coming
mm.
from a place of service. You're not coming from a place of really wanting to provide for somebody else. So really, when you take a look at that mindset, the mindset shift of, dang, like, I'm really not doing this because of this person. Like, I'm doing this because of my own selfish needs.
That is
And once,
such a complete different way to see
yeah,
how you're doing a disservice to yourself. I never thought about
right,
this, but it's so true. Like it's
mhm,
seeing completely in a different way. That is really
right.
powerful.
Yeah, it's when I learned that, I was like, oh my gosh, like I was thinking I'm just, I'm just the best, I am the best person to be your friend because I am going, but no, it wasn't that. It was 100% very selfish. The way that I was acting was very selfish and it was out of integrity. I wasn't being me. And then, well, no wonder why, like I've lost friends along the way because
Mm,
they were friends with somebody who was fake. Yes, I was fake. I was wearing all of these masks. I was trying to be, somebody that I wasn't.
mm,
And so now as I'm working with clients, it's really getting clear on that. And once we learn how often we make decisions for the wrong reasons and how often we're doing things that that don't serve us, that don't serve our purpose, don't deserve, aren't in service for the life that we want to live.
mm.
Once you start getting clear on that, it makes it so much easier to find what your hell yes and your no's are.
Yeah, that is so amazing, and so true. I think we are too attached to the attachment of that thing, so we don't let go. But it's about surrendering and not
Yeah,
being afraid to lose whatever
right.
it is that we are afraid to lose. It could be
Yeah.
people or
Mhm.
situations,
Yeah.
and staying true to yourself, because
Right.
once you find that the
Mhm.
truth within yourself, then as you said earlier, anything starts to align. And we are too hung up on how that
Yeah.
thing will happen, and we forget that we just let it be, and we do what we are supposed to do, and we just true to
Mhm.
ourselves, things will just happen.
Yeah, that you're so correct there. It's one of those things when you surrender, you are allowing the universe, what source, God, whatever that is for you. When you surrender, you are allowing things to work out the way that they're supposed to,
Mm,
instead of how you believe it is
yeah.
supposed to. And I remember being so angry for so long, like, well, God, why did you let this happen to me? Like, why do these things keep happening to me? Like, why didn't you send me a sign? Like, there's all of these emotions and all these. Do you know how many signs I had? And because I was so determined that this was how I thought it needed to work out, it didn't. That wasn't how it was supposed to be for me. And once I surrendered to, I don't really know how this is going to turn out, but I know that if I'm acting authentically and I'm
Mm,
making decisions that are in alignment for myself, then I'm following my path. And it was really being okay that we have multiple seasons in our life, and everything that happens is just a season. So, if you get sick, it's just a season. My
mm-hmm.
my first marriage was just a season. So was my second. And it's like I'm I'm okay with that. Once you surrender and once you just know that it's gonna work out. I don't know how it's all gonna work out. I'm still single. Will I get married again? I'm open to it. It's funny. A
Mm,
lot of people are like, Melissa, how could you ever even imagine, being in a marriage again? And I'm like, because I believe in love. I believe that
mm,
men are good. And it's so interesting when I have these conversations with, women who have been through hurt or women who have been through trauma. A lot of times women can become man haters,
yeah.
but it's not about that. It's really about surrendering to where you are in your
Mm,
life and where that person was in his. And so at the end of my second marriage, I wasn't bitter at the fact that he had all of these affairs, because I know
mm,
that he was acting the best he could with the tools that he had to deal with the traumas he had in his life. That wasn't about me.
yeah.
And once I got clear that it really never was about me, and yeah, did it hurt? Of course it hurt. The betrayal was there, like all of that. but it never was about me. And so once I was able to move past that, it like opens up a whole new world to you.
Mm.
And so as I'm going through my coaching, you know, I do coach men, and and for me there's two parts to that. It was very much, it helped me heal my own
Mm-hmm.
relationship with men,
Yeah.
and then it also, I I was able to experience it from both sides. I've been in a domestic violence situation. I've been in, a situation of adultery. But also when I'm coaching men, I'm able to kind of bridge that gap. I'm
Mm-hmm.
able to help them figure out what's going on within themselves. But then also I'm able to share what's happening on the woman's side as well.
Mm.
And so it has created, there dynamic changes within the coach, the men that I'm coaching, also the women, because it kind of goes the same way. There is confidentiality within coaching, but I'm able to share experiences.
Yeah.
And so when I'm working with, women and we're talking about affairs, I can share from my experience, but also I can share from the men that I've coached and where, their mindset is
Mm.
when they're making those decisions. And so it has been very powerful within both.
It is, it is. And I think, conversation and communication are important. And I don't think there is ever enough communication and conversation about how we feel, what are our fears, and how we can overcome them. And especially when you're in a relationship, that should be a goal to have together,
Yeah.
But I think that there is so much pride and such a old way of thinking that still there are all those issues coming up. And of course, then everybody is in their own place because that's how it is. And if you're in, we said it earlier, you attract what you are.
Yeah.
So it can be easier than that. I know it sounds for some people might think, yeah, right, okay, but I'm having all these bad situations. But really look into what's going on with you and see what's happening.
Yeah.
All right, I'll stay here talking to you more. Such an interesting topic, but we need to wrap up. So I'd like you to tell us where we can find you, and also if you can give us the last tip for our listeners and the people watching.
Oh my goodness. Last tip. My last tip would be, now's the time. Take action now. It doesn't matter what season you're in, what you're going through. You're never going to be ready.
Yes.
So now's the time. Take action and know that you are worthy and that you are loved and you are supported and you deserve whatever that is that you've been thinking about. So yeah, that's my final tip.
Thank you. Well, now tell us where we can find you.
So I am on Facebook. Facebook is Melissa Lynn. I also have a private group on Facebook for women, the badass women. I welcome everybody from your community who is interested to come and join us there. And on Instagram, I am Melissa Lynn on Instagram. And then I would love to offer your community. I have a free download guide that I would love to offer your community, and that is Melissa Lynn's 5-step guide. If anybody would like to go in and
where do we find that?
So it is melissalinnfivestepguide.com.
Okay.
Yeah. I welcome anybody who has any questions to reach out. I would love to have a conversation, and please download the guide. There's lots of tips and first steps on there.
Amazing. Well, all the details will be below the YouTube video, but also in the show notes for who is listening. Thank you so much, Melissa. That was such an amazing conversation. And for everybody watching and listening, if you want to get in touch with her, please check the show notes and get in touch with her. It's such a powerful work what she's doing, and we all need a little bit of help with people pleasing. And especially if you are in an abusive relationship, please ask for help. There is someone that can help you on the other side, even just with a chat. You don't have to, but just start with a conversation. It starts from there. And for everybody else, if you want to get in touch with me, you have questions, just want to know more, just go to theintuitionqueen.com and you find me on every social media with the Intuition Queen, looking for the Intuition Queen. And if you like this episode, please give us some stars and leave us a comment. And thank you so much for watching and for listening. And I'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Melissa, again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Your mind is clearer than before. Your heart is full and wanting more. Your future's at the door.